Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome all of you who joined us this morning to hear the webinar focused on gold and silver exploration in North America. And we will have two companies presenting today, Reyna Silver and Cassiar Gold. My name is Adina, and I'm head of business development and investor relations at Emerging Markets Capital that is hosting today's webinar. So Emerging Markets Capital is a private mining investment firm based in Hong Kong and in early invest in both Cassiar Gold and Reyna Silver. So just to remind you that today's webinar is for informational purposes only. Just a short introduction. Cassiar Gold is a gold exploration company that is focused on British Columbia, and its main focus and flagship asset is Cassiar Gold Project. And next we have Reyna Silver, which is a silver exploration company with a robust portfolio of high-grade silver assets in Mexico and the US. Reyna's strategy is to explore projects that have the potential for high-grade and district-scale discoveries. And our speakers today, please welcome Doug Kerben, who is a technical advisor. He previously served as a VP of exploration at Ivanhoe Mines for 17 years. He was a part of the team that made a number of significant discoveries, including Hyuga Damet at Oyu Tolgoi, Mongolia, gold deposits at Yunsan, South Korea, Seriun Mine in Indonesia, and Moritone Mine in Myanmar. He is a co-recipient of 2004 PDAC Thayer Linsley Award. And then we also have Jorge Ramiro Monroy, who is the CEO of Reyna Silver, and Marco Roque, who is the president, CEO, and director at Cassiar Gold. So we will start with the Cassiar Gold presentation. So with this, I hand it over to Marco.
Perfect. Thank you very much. As Adina mentioned, Cassiar Gold, we are an exploration company focused in our flagship asset, Cassiar Gold, located in northern BC. We believe we have a multi-million ounce potential, and we already proved 1 million ounces, and we are on our way to prove that multi-million ounce potential that we have. Just want to bring your attention to the cautionary and forward-looking statement, which I will be making today. So in terms of investment highlights, there's really a few things that I really like to get across for the people listening here, is that one, we have a foundational resource. It's a 43101, over 1 million ounces at 1.43 grams per ton inferred that are already identified, and this is a resource that is basically unconstrained and open in multiple directions. This resource is surrounded by infrastructure. And I'll talk that in a second, but we have a highway going over our property and actually over the deposit. We have a permitted mill, camp, tailings, and mine permits, which is really good and makes our life to prove that exploration potential a lot easier. We're quite undervalued or very attractively valued as you want to see it, and I'll have a slide that talks to that. And more importantly, we really have a world-class team. Doug, one of our most senior, successful, and experienced team members is here on the call. But we also have some renowned industry names like David Rees, James Maxwell, Steve Ledman, or Chris Stewart, just to name a few. But more importantly, and as I was mentioning, we have a multi-million ounce potential. I've already alluded to some of that potential coming from the potential to grow that bulk tonnage open pitable resource, but also along strike where we have a 15-kilometer strike belt that has the potential for a multi-million ounce and other discoveries, both bulk tonnage as well as high grade, as well as other areas in our property that are very prospective, and we have a 56,000 hectare land package, which there's a lot of room for discovery, and I'll be talking about that very shortly. So I just want to focus on the people first, which it's one of our key assets. To be quite frank, we have on our board Steve Ledwin. He's actually our largest individual shareholder. He's the former president and CEO of IM Gold, and he has joined the board of Cassiar roughly a year ago when he retired from IM Gold. We have also Doug Kerwin here is already been introduced by Dina. It's a real pleasure and a great benefit to have Doug on the team. He requires no introduction. And we also have Chris Tour on our board. He's a mining engineer and turnaround specialist. Previously with president and CEO of McEwen Mining, also with the Treasury Metals, and also previously with Kirkland Lake. Then we have Casey Gladwin, our VP of Exploration, that together with James Maxwell, who's our technical advisor as well, been quite instrumental at Sabina Gold and Silver. A great deposit, located in the Arctic Circle. So, a tough environment to operate, and they've clearly done it before. And then we also, our most recent addition to the technical team, David Rees, is joining in November. Is really one of the foremost orogenic gold experts in the world, which is the type of mineralization that we have on our assets. He is also a structural geologist, and he also has worked in this property in the past, around 2009 and 2010, for the company that actually consolidated the entire land package. And it's really a benefit, and I can't highlight enough to how important to have people like David and Doug and the rest of our team, and it's really important as we move our projects forward. Very quickly, in terms of the capital structure, we currently have 54 million shares outstanding. Our share price a few days ago was 43 cents, which is extremely low. That gives us a market cap of just over $23 million Canadian. We have over $5 million in the bank, so we are well capitalized for our exploration program this year, which is quite ambitious, and I believe it to be quite transformational. Since I guess I took over as CEO in the 1st of July last year, we've been able to improve quite a bit our share structure. Our institutional shareholder base grew from under 10% to getting close to 24%, which is great to see. We also have a really healthy board, management, advisor, and insider ownership, which it's great to see that shareholder alignment as well. And we're working our way, and it's a tough gold market out there. And we also just had coming this Monday our November financing free trading with some of probably some of the flow through funds taking some positions out. So we're in a good position, and very attractively valued as we speak, and well prepared for what's coming our way in the near future. In terms of valuation, this slide really shows how attractively valued we are. We have several of our peers here. The blue bars stand for enterprise value, and you have the scale on the left-hand side. The yellow circles stand for enterprise value per ounce on the ground. You can see that some of the names out there don't have a yellow circle, which means they don't have a resource. This ignores, of course, any exploration upside that we have. This talks about our 2019 maiden resource, our million ounces at 1.43 grams per ton. So trading at 24 million Canadian dollars market cap, with 5 million cash in the bank, our enterprise value per ounce in the ground is just under $20 Canadian, and our peers are at getting close to $70 Canadian per ounce. So we believe there's an undervaluation gap there that will be corrected over time, and hopefully very shortly. And at the same time, as we add exploration success, which we have been doing, and we did so last year as well, we will provide further upside to our investors and further return for our equity as well. So focusing on our two main assets, we have our flagship Cassiar Gold, which is located in northern BC, more or less between Silvertip from Kerr Mining, close to the border with Yukon, and also roughly 200 kilometers north of Red Chris on the road. You know, a little bit less so as the crow flies, and you know, Cassiar holds the entirety of the 1 million ounces there, and you know, it's a very prospective land package, and it's the focus of our entire exploration campaign for this year. We also have a secondary asset, Sheep Creek, which is located in southern BC, close to the border with the US. It's also an orogenic gold district, and it's actually quite prospective as well. But you know, it doesn't host 1 million ounces foundational resource, and you know, we won't be, you know, we don't have the bandwidth, you know, both in terms of manpower and financial resources to you know, really allocate any attention to that asset this year. So further narrowing into our flagship at Cassiar Gold. So as I mentioned before, it's a really substantial land package. This has a district scale potential. You know, we already have the 1 million ounces there at 1.43 grams per ton, which is entirely in this little orange smudge on top of on, you know, the north side of the yellow oval. You know, as I mentioned before, we have Highway 37 coming from the south and basically cutting our property in half, in separating North Cassiar from South Cassiar. The focus of our exploration program last year was entirely around Taurus, and basically pushing out that envelope of non-mineralization there, as well as doing some infill. And this year we'll be allocating between Taurus and some of this past producing you know, high-grade gold and quartz vein mines that you see further south, like, you know, Main and Volag and Cusack and Bain. You know, I will talk a little bit further to that in a second as well. But in terms of infrastructure, as I was mentioning before, we have also, you know, camp. We also have a mill, a permitted 300 ton per day mill, gravity and flotation. We have tailings. We have 4 tailing dams with 600,000 tons at roughly 1 to 1.24 grams per ton. And we also have an historical resource at South Cassiar, which will be the main focus of the exploration program, which will be around these past producing you know, gold veins here at the south, which are connected to the rest of our mill and camp through multiple property access roads. And just so you know, this 15-kilometer belt is you know, as I mentioned before, the focus, and I will be, you know, focusing our presentation here at in this area as well. This slide gives you a little bit of a visual of you know, what we have in that 15-kilometer belt. This is actually looking from you know, Lucky, which is one of our, you know, bulk tonnage prospects here on the bottom left of your corner. The 1 million ounce resource at Taurus, you know, sits here, and it's basically, you can see also coming from your bottom right, the Cassiar road that is linking and going over the Taurus deposit and linking to the Cassiar, you know, to the Highway 37 that runs across the base of the mountain. As I mentioned before, we'll be looking at doing some you know, step outs and you know, infill drilling around Taurus, and continue to grow that bulk tonnage, which we already successfully drilled last year. But the main focus will be on these more alpine targets on South Cassiar, which, you know, are roughly a few kilometers south from the Taurus deposit, as well as the mill and the camp that sit along the Cassiar highway. So just further narrowing down into our 1 million ounce deposits, there's a couple of things that I really want to highlight. One is that, you know, the grade at 1.43 grams per ton is, you know, already over 1 million ounces, is using a cutoff grade of 0.7, which is, you know, relatively high in this kind of gold price environment, and also looking at the geometry of you know, the current deposits. As you can see on the image on the bottom, you know, in blue you can see the great shells. So most of the resource sits less than 100 meters deep, and also it's very shallow and with almost no overburden, and it's an horizontal ore body. So I guess you can imagine an open pit here. And as I mentioned before, this is an unconstrained deposit in an unconstrained resource. We already drilled in some gaps in the resource model here and around the edges of the resource last year quite successfully. So we've kind of expanded that envelope of known mineralization. Continues to be open basically in all directions, and it will be also doing some more work this year and stepping out and doing some infill in some sections of higher grade that we see both at on the southern and western areas of that deposit. Very quickly, just want to highlight kind of the mill, that we can see the picture here on the left of the 300 ton per day mill built in 86, last operated in 2007. In terms of metallurgy, we also have really good metallurgies. The recoveries are quite good from the initial tests that we've done. We'll probably do more in the future, but just so you know, over 95% of the ore is free milling, and less than 5% of the ore is refractory. And we're quite happy with the mats that we have. So just looking very quickly in terms of some of the results that we've from our program last year, you can see here the plan view of some of our in red, basically the projected basically veins and grade shells to the surface, and in the colored circles and arrows, you can see some of the drill holes that we've had from last year. Maybe I would just highlight some of the numbers here. I really like drill hole 115, where we have 76 meters at 1 gram, or hole 114, where we have 83 meters at 1.2. But we also have some very interesting intersections like hole 116 here, where we have 18 meters at 5.4 grams per ton. We do have a continuation of mineralization but we also have some higher grade pause, which is great to see. And some of these higher grade sections is some of the areas that we're going to be also focusing next year with some follow up and step out drilling. Here we can see also some of kind of like the highlights of those drill results. In terms of translating that, in terms of what is the geological meaning of that. So we basically last year confirmed the potential to increase the Taurus resource base, and we also increased our confidence in the historical results, and we established the continuity at mineralization basically across the resource. And in addition to that, we also added Wings Canyon here as a new bulk tonnage prospect. This is we have some really interesting results, and we've intercepted some veins there. And this is also an area where we have some really long intercepts of 100, 120 meters at 0.5, 0.6 grams per ton, which really tell you the story of this like kind of bulk tonnage target. And remains to be seen how big of Wings Canyon as a bulk tonnage target is, but it could be something similar or close to what we see at Taurus as well. And this is just 500 meters south from the resource boundary from Taurus as well. So just taking a step back into terms of the opportunity. So I've mentioned that 15-kilometer targets. We have a growing bulk tonnage, open pitable, flat-lying resource with good metallurgy and surrounded by infrastructure that will be doing some follow-up. And this is a Taurus. You can see here some of the veins that are already been identified in red. But the focus will be at South Cassiar. This is an energetic gold setting, and we have these high-grade vein gold, high-grade gold and quartz vein targets here. This system is only been partially explored and only partially exploited as well. So there's a lot of mineralization there. That's why we also have an historical resource. And the goal is really to have a proper look and step out and really have a meaningful exploration program to really prove that high grade. So to further give you a little bit of a visual onto that potential, I guess here on the right, or you can, or maybe like starting from the bottom, you can see some of the, this is a long section looking west, so right is north and left is south. And just to give you kind of a bearing, you can see here Taurus, on the closer to the right. So this is an area where you have bulk tonnage disseminated gold, along with some high-grade gold in quartz veins, cutting through. So you can see basically in solid red some of the known veins there, and in some of the dotted areas on these, on the right-hand side on these bulk tonnage targets, you can see the potential for expansion. And basically we have the room to grow at Taurus, which is unconstrained. We have the room to grow at Wings Canyon, and we also have the room to grow at Lucky, which is an interesting prospect that we have also, a bit further north, just a couple of kilometers and up the hill. And as I mentioned before, we've going to be doing some follow-up here, mostly focused around Taurus, and we were thinking of allocating roughly 3,000 meters there. But really the bulk and the majority of our drilling meters next year, or apologies, this year, is going to be focused around South Cassiar on the high-grade veins. If you look, this is a previous this is a brownfield operation. There are several adits and several kilometers of underground workings there. You can see some of the veins that already been identified there. These systems are typically stacked. So in the dash lines, you have the potential for more veins there, and these veins are along several corridors as well as stacked, and there's a lot of room for expansion. So we can grow on the veins that already been identified and going along strike, as well as going for some targets, some blind targets below those veins, and that's really exciting because we can start building a high grade resource to hopefully match and add to our growing bulk tonnage resource. In this high grade resource, I can give you a slide just to give you a little bit of an illustration on what we are looking at. So if we look at this, this is a past producing property. Most of the production came from the 80s and 90s, very high grades, 17, 21 grams per ton. Just 350,000 ounces produced in our property, but there's room to, for a lot more. So we still have an historical resource there. It's roughly 70,000 ounces between the indicated and inferred, and these are the veins that are already been identified. And this is kind of the kind of grade that we are hoping to add through these veins, and we are looking to basically drill 12,000 meters there, and along strike and down at looking at blind discoveries in lower stratigraphies. Hopefully make this resource a lot bigger, and hopefully one day part of our 43-101 as well. Just so these veins are typically on average and historically roughly 2 to 3 meter thick and around 20 gram per ton. And this is a very exciting target, and really has the potential to completely re-rate the company. If you start thinking, it's great to be adding ounces at 1.5 gram in a bulk tonnage target, but it's a lot more exciting to be adding ounces at 20 gram per ton or similar kind of grades, and that has the potential to completely change or re-rate the company, as we build an inventory of ounces that's higher grade, that ultimately in a production scenario will increase the head grade of what's going through the mill, increases margins, increases cash flow, and ultimately increases the valuation. And just a kind of a final note on corporate social responsibility, which is very much important these days, and we are no exception. We are very committed to the community, environment, and sustainability. And these are not just buzzwords. This is not only essential to maintain our social license to operate, but more importantly also the right thing to do. We will be actually sharing on our website some of the things that we are doing, and I think generally everyone is very pleased. We're not cutting any corners, and we really want to make sure that we maintain that social license to operate and do the right thing at the same time. So in terms of catalysts, we'll continue to enhance our corporate profile. achieve our corporate milestones as well as maximize our asset value. We're currently working in refining the targets at both Torres as well as in South Cassiar in advance of our drilling program. We also continue to market, this is a good example as well, to raise the investor awareness to attract both institutional as well as retail investors. And more importantly, we're financed to our drill campaign this year, which is, as mentioned before, focused on the high-grade targets at South Cassiar. We're planning to open camp in late May and starting to drill in June. So, it's just around the corner in Q2. So, stay tuned for that. I can't wait to open camp and start drilling and getting those drill results out there and basically prove the potential that we all believe have. And just to finalize, just to highlight, kind of our, key investment highlights. We do have a foundational resource that is growing, surrounded by infrastructure. So it ticks, all the boxes there's, that you want to tick. We are still quite undervalued, so it's a very attractively valued opportunity that is led by truly a world-class team. And more importantly, it has a multi-million ounce potential, district scale potential. And we're very excited to be looking to prove that up as this year, and very importantly, the high grade as well this year. So with that, I'll pass it over back to Adina.
Thank you, Marco, for interesting presentation. Now we're moving to Reyna Silver. Jorge, yeah, we can see your slides.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Adina, and thank you, Marco, and congratulations on all the good work you are doing at Cassiar. I wanted to first of all take a time to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to our presentation. I see some of you who are joined who have been our shareholders from the beginning, and some of you who I believe is the first time you are encountering our story. I also wanted to take a moment to acknowledge and take the opportunity to publicly thank Doug Kerwin, who is in this call to help us answer any technical questions on Cassiar Gold. And Doug Kerwin, Adina introduced him at the beginning, but he is somebody that specifically we're very grateful for what he has done with regards of Cassiar Gold and helping us understand the potential there, and also helping us assemble an incredible team there. And I just wanted to take that moment to acknowledge him and thank him for being in the call. Just a quick, maybe to introduce myself very briefly. I'm originally from Mexico. I've been in the mining business for about 10 years. I started my career in the mining business through a gentleman who's actually on the call today, Masai Gata, who is the CEO of Frontier Securities in Mongolia. He invited me to go on an internship there after I finished my MBA. Fell in love with the exploration business, and we've been at it for a little while. And in about 2017, we were very interested in silver as a commodity, and so I started looking into what was happening in the sector at the time, and really the big theme that I came across was that because silver had been in a low environment for such a long time, basically since 2013, the silver mid-tier producers had basically been producing silver either at break-even or in many cases at a loss. As a result, there had been very little to no exploration for a long time. And I realized that most companies were starting to high grade their deposits. The overall grade that mining companies were mining became lower and lower. And then when I started reaching out to different mid-tier producers in Canada, I started realizing that they all had an excess inventory of assets that were available. So I visited with Peter McGaw, who you see here in the picture. And Peter McGaw, I think, is one of the most successful silver exploration geologist of the last couple of decades. And so I went to visit him in his house in Tucson, and he's got a great setup. I think some of you can see Doug Kerwin's background, with all the minerals behind him. Peter's house is something like that. It's a house that maybe more than half the house is filled with rocks and books on Mexican geology. And I always like to tell him that he has a very understanding wife. But what Peter explained to me was, look, if you want to invest in silver, you have basically two options. One is you could go for a low-grade silver deposit, and there's a lot of around that companies have tried and maybe didn't work out because the silver price has moved down. And then the other option, which that he personally found more exciting, was in the silver space. Most of the great silver deposits are in Mexico, and then Mexico is severely underexplored for a number of reasons. Primarily because prior to the signing of NAFTA in 1994, 95, mining was not available for foreign exploration companies. So there was a big wave of Canadian companies who came to Mexico in the mid 90s, and then just started finding these amazing deposits, just following the old workings from the Spanish, who really mined Mexico extensively. I mean, it's really, really incredible as you go and do site visits in Mexico, the amount of mining that the Spanish did. And because, the technology at the time wasn't very, like what we have now, they could only sort of tap the upper crusts of these projects. And so Canadians have made a big contribution in terms of unlocking the potential, but it's relatively recent, the exploration. So with this in mind, we put together a deal with Mag Silver. And for those of you who are not familiar with Mag Silver, this is a company that Peter McGaw, who's the gentleman I just talked to you about, is the founder of. And it's a company that went public in 2003 with 3 assets. 2 assets are the ones that we now have. And then the one asset is an asset that Peter McGaw, acquired. I mean, I'll tell you the 30-second story because it's really fascinating. A company called Fresnillo, which is the largest silver production company in the world, had explored it for over 2-3 decades. They decided there's nothing here, drop the property. Peter picks it up from a local gentleman who sold it to him for, I think, $250,000. And then Peter takes the company public. He put Guigui and Batopilas, which are the 2 projects that we now have, and those were projects that he had been putting together for a number of years. And then with in a very tough market, because this was after the .com bust, he raised a little bit of money, goes and literally on the very first drill hole intersects the bonanza grades that have made Juanicipio, which is Mag Silver's flagship asset, famous. Long story short, that is now in production, or just starting production on what is the highest grade silver mine anywhere in the world. So on the back of that situation, I reached out to Mag Silver in 2017. They had these 2 projects, Guigui and Batopilas, which we now have. And at the time, they were single focused on putting Guigui into production. No, they still needed to raise, I think they raised something like $150 million since that time. So we did a deal with them where they became our shareholder, gave us the properties. And then I took the responsibility for initially investing our own money to move the projects. And then in 2020, we went public. We've raised about 30 million Canadian dollars, of which we still have roughly 11 million in the bank. And this is what our capital structure looks like. We've had a successful first few months as a public company. We're able to attract a strong institutional base, and also generate very good liquidity, trading roughly 500,000 shares per day. We have 4 projects: Guigui, Batopilas, which are the 2 projects that we inherited from Mag Silver, and then since we went public, we've acquired La Reyna and Medicine Springs in Nevada, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. Just to tell you very briefly, I like showing this slide because the silver exploration equities market is very different from gold. In gold equities, you have literally between the ASX and TSX, got to be like 600 companies. For silver, because of the same reason that I described to you before, with so little money for silver exploration for so many years, there's also very few silver exploration companies. And really what the market is after is for the company that can bring to a resource level the next 100 million ounce plus silver project. And let me tell you, there's very few of those. I think in the last, let's say 5 years, the only significant discovery has been Silvercrest that you see here at the top of the list. That's been an absurdly successful company, going from about 100 million market cap 3-4 years ago to $1.5 billion now. And that's really what we aspire to be. We at the moment sit still at what I would consider undervalued level. And I think for all of you who are grappling as to whether you would like to invest in Reyna Silver, I would invite you to look at our peers sort of on the bottom part of the segment from Orcana down, and then realize that our asset base has a very interesting potential for appreciation. Very briefly about our leadership team, our board is led by Peter Jones, who's the former chairman of Hudbay Minerals. Hudbay Minerals, of course, one of Canada's largest copper producers. And he brings that experience to our board. I'm very grateful for his leadership. And then in terms of our geology, we're led by two geologists on the ground, Ariel Navarro and Reyna Ramirez, both of whom have experience working for Mag Silver and Pan American Silver, as well as other major and mid-tier silver companies in Mexico. And they are on their own right very successful geologists. I spoke to you about Peter McGaw, and really has an unusually high rate of success, has 4 major discoveries to his name, a recipient of the prestigious PDAC Tyler Lindsay Award for his discoveries for Mag Silver. And then we have also Doug Kerwin as a senior technical advisor, and of course Doug was introduced earlier by Adina. Doug was actually one of our early investors and somebody who we're very grateful to be able to have as a resource in our company. I wanted to tell you briefly about our flagship asset, Guigui. And at this point, I wanted to play you a segment of a video of Peter McGaw speaking about the asset, about Guigui.
I fell in love with the Santa Eulalia district in 1977 when I was doing my master's thesis. Got fascinated by the minerals, recognized fairly quickly that very little was actually known about the district in a regional sense, even though it was and remains the largest manto and chimney system ever found in Mexico. A few years later, when I had the opportunity to spend the next 7 years studying the district in detail, and I mean everything from regionally mapping the district, the entire mountain range, down to looking at the isotopes of sulfur and oxygen and carbon. The outfall of all of that was a very strong list of geologic features that indicated where the ore fluids came from, and the recognition that there ought to be more in that direction, and that has sort of guided the exploration into Guigui.
Buff-colored unit. Yeah.
We were fairly astounded in the late 80s to discover that the ground to the south was open, and then additional ground was acquired subsequently. Guigui became one of the 3 projects that we started Mag Silver with in 2003, based on targeting using the existing CSAMT and NSAMT geophysics that had been done before, coupled with, of course, my field mapping and the work that had gone before that for BHP. essentially eliminated some areas from consideration and got us focused in the area where we intend to focus with Reyna Silver. With MAG, most of our attention was in the east camp, where we got some fairly strong mineralization along the west fault of the San Antonio Graben, which is the host for the San Antonio mine, which is the second biggest mine in the district. One of the things that happened with MAG was in 2008, we had run a couple of drilling programs, actually 2007, and we recognized that there had to be more there, and we were being very successful with a combination of airborne MAG and Z-TEM or Z-TEM. We found we could map deep structure and lithology very effectively with the combination of these two tools. So we flew the Guigui area for MAG with that airborne survey, began at a very broad regional scale, recognizing that Santa Eulalia was a member of a very large family of deposits, and that these deposits were well distributed within a belt a couple of 100 kilometers wide and 2,200 kilometers long in Mexico, and that there were clusters of the similar types of deposits in the western U.S. and elsewhere in the Cordillera of the Western Hemisphere. So we began to compile information on these deposits, and we recognized through the process of that compilation that there is a continuous zoning from an intrusive porphyry to skarns in contact with the intrusion to skarns and sulfide replacements associated with dike offshoots from the main intrusion. And we could recognize by looking at any given district how much of the entire spectrum that they could show was present in a given district. And the more we looked, the more we recognized that there were a number of districts like Santa Eulalia where only half of the zoning had been found. And the beauty of the model in terms of Santa Eulalia is that the Chimney and Manto portion, which is the most difficult part to explore, it has the benefit of being the highest grade, but it's the most difficult to explore and does provide some mining challenges simply because of the geometry of the Manto, flat-lying Manto ore bodies. What's left to find at Santa Eulalia is the stock, intrusive stock that drove the system and the skarns that we expect to be proximal to that, and those tend to be the large, reasonably coherent lenses of mineralization with a very favorable geometry for bulk underground mining. They also have the virtue of being high grade. So it's really a question of putting up the model of what we know, not just from Santa Eulalia, but from dozens of districts like this worldwide, and recognizing that half of Santa Eulalia is missing. And that's what we're looking for. And part of the idea is that if the part that we know about there is the biggest of its type in Mexico and the second biggest ever found, second only to the Taylor deposit in Arizona, that the other half of the system has the potential to be equally important. We have very good surface cover, very strong alteration that we can work with. It really is a question of zeroing in on where the intrusive center is in the system and finding it in the right rocks. The Santa Eulalia district was probably found in 1592, 1593 by what were called adelanteros, who were explorers associated with the conquistadores, who were the Spanish group that was moving into Mexico. And they probably found high-grade copper and iron oxide mineralization in the east camp of the district, in an area called Chiribel, south of the San Antonio mine. But 70 years later, in the early 1600s, two brothers found mineralization in the middle camp, which is essentially right in the middle of where Reyna Silver's property is. And they operated it for a couple of years by hand, small scale but very high grade mining, until some of the locals got irritated with them, killed one of the brothers, and the other one returned to Spain. It wasn't until 1702 that the big discovery was made in the district. Essentially, mineralization was tracked over the next 300 years through different styles and types of ore and mining technology from that outcrop for 5 kilometers to the south and for over a kilometer, probably 1.2 kilometers vertically into the bottom of the Potosi mine. And it is the geometry that was revealed by that mining that is part of what led us to recognizing where the ore fluids came from and what direction we have to explore. So we are the beneficiaries not only of more modern exploration that's been done, but of 300 plus years of continuous mining by people simply keeping the high grade in the face and following it wherever it led. Well, I worked primarily summers in the Santa Eulalia district from 1983 until I finally finished my dissertation in 1990. I was warmly incorporated into the communities of both the Buena Tierra and Potosi mining companies, and worked daily underground and then on the surface throughout the district. So I essentially had unfettered access to every working in the district, plus all of the historic archives, which put me in a unique position of being able to generate the district scale map on the basis of work that had been done by generations of highly qualified geologists before me, was able to put together some of the more modern laboratory studies that we brought to bear to understand the district.
This is really what the camp looks like. We have as Peter mentioned, it's the largest CRD system known in Mexico. That 500 million ounces of silver has come from these two mines to our east and west, just a mere few hundred meters from where our exploration is taking place. This is what the geological model looks like, and what we've been doing since about December of 2020 is on the back of the work that Mag Silver had done, putting the geophysics together with the historic drilling, additional mapping, satellite images. We came up with a 10,000 meter drill target. We've completed about the 3,000 meters out of a total of 10,000. The green dots represent the areas that we're drilling, and the idea is to continue drilling all the way until we finish this 10,000 meters, take a small break, reevaluate the results, and then continue drilling throughout the year. And I'll speak a little bit more about that, but we're well funded. At the moment, we're thinking we could do up to 20,000 meters of drilling in this year. So let me tell you very briefly about our second project, Batopilas. And then this is a second project that came from Mag Silver. And again, I'll play a short video of Peter McGaw introducing this asset.
It sits in the bottom of the canyons in the Barranca country of southwestern Chihuahua. The history there goes back to the 1600s, where the conquistadores found extremely high-grade silver veins literally sticking out of the surface. Batopilas is different from the other vein systems that were found in Mexico in the sense that the mineralization there is native silver. It's not a silver sulfide or a silver chloride. It is crystallized metallic silver in pods that occur within calcite veins. So unlike the quartz veins that you see in Guanajuato and Pachuca and the other big veins, which provide these great big tall wall-like surface expressions, because it's calcite, which is soft, the expression of the veins at Batopilas is much more subdued, but they found masses of native silver on the surface, and there were reportedly several 100 million ounces of this material found during the Spanish era, literally digging downward from the surface. In the district essentially lay fallow from sometime in the early 1700s until the late 1800s, when the Batopilas Mining Company consolidated the district and brought a tunnel in underneath all of the old Spanish workings and began to find additional ore shoots of the same style the Spaniards had mined. That district continued in production, and it supported the second hydroelectric plant ever built in Mexico. So Batopilas was fully electrified with a hospital and schools and all of this stuff. It was a thriving community until the Mexican Revolution. And over the next 50 years, the district fragmented into a whole series of small holdings. We were able to put it together in the 1990s, working with another company. When the lights went out in 97, they turned it back to us. So it became one of the 3 properties we started MAG with. Our initial idea was that these bodies of crystallized native silver, we thought those would be very strong conductors to modern electrical geophysical techniques. And so that was what was driving our exploration initially. We did an airborne geophysical survey, and we got some pretty good looking anomalies, a couple of which when we drilled them, we got some very high grade mineralization, narrow widths, 30, 40 centimeters of multi-kilo mineralization. We still have full underground access. We know where the threads are that we want to pick up. The next steps for exploration in Batopilas are sort of twofold. One is we did get some very good intercepts in the drilling program that we did with MAG. We were not focused on discovering individual veins. We were focused on seeing if we could develop an exploration tool that would allow us to use that same tool elsewhere systematically throughout the district with the kinds of grades that were found in Batopilas. The historic grade for the average grade for the Batopilas Mining Company from 1880 to 1912 was 2% silver. So you don't really have to have a lot of tonnage with that kind of grade to make a very significant discovery.
The main thing that we did is in October of last year, we started an exploration campaign. And, as Peter was saying, we took into account everything that Max Silver did. Then we focused on this area that you can see here in the north of the property, and really wanted to look for extensions to the known veins. The district includes 30 known veins. About half of them have never had any exploration. However, the grades are known through the historic records or some of the exploration that Max Silver did. So what we did is we did a trenching and sampling campaign that yielded some very interesting results. We just released them recently. We did about 258 trench and rock chip samples. Many of them, I would say about 80 plus, came with abnormally high grades of silver. For silver, we encounter up to 42,000 grams per ton in a newly discovered vein. And so what we're doing now is designing a program on the back of these trenching results. We also encountered gold for the first time in the property in a new vein that was not known to us before. We had about 40 samples that came with high-grade gold, including one that has about 21 grams per ton gold. Since we finished that program, we started a new program to try to connect the new veins that we found to see if they connect all the way to the old veins that are known. And then we're also starting our permitting. The idea is to drill this property as well. Because I've gone a little bit over my time, I'm just going to tell you very briefly about La Reyna project. This is an epithermal vein that's about 2 kilometers long, and it's part of another one of Mexico's great historic districts. This project, has 2 kilometers that look very similar to this picture. This is an actual picture of the vein at La Reyna. It's about 6 meters in width. The Spanish mined it, to about 50 meters. Then the rock either became too hard or they hit the water table. However, that mineralization does continue for the majority of the 2 kilometers of strike. And what we want to do is drill at depth and then see the depth of the mineralization and start building a resource. And then finally, we have the Medicine Springs project. This is a project that we optioned in late 2020. We thought it was an excellent project for our portfolio because Peter is one of the world leading authorities on CRDs. It had been drilled for gold because it's in the Carlin district in Nevada. They found, instead of gold, silver from surface to about 50 meters. So, we're just about to fly a LiDAR survey in the next couple of weeks. And then on the back of a little more geological work, we'll be announcing our plans, but we are expecting to be able to drill this project as well, 5,000 to 7,000 meters this year. So, the catalyst for the company is all based on our drilling. We have, as I mentioned at the beginning, 11 million in the bank. And the idea is to just drill our 4 properties throughout the year. We really think, going back to that slide at the beginning, what really drives the market cap for companies in our peer group is high silver intersects that validate the concept of district scale. And I do believe that we have that potential with each and every one of our assets. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation and turn it back to Adina.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jorge and Marco, for your presentations. Now let's move to questions. We have received a couple of questions for both companies. So the first question is for Doug Corbin. In your career, you must have seen many gold projects. What specifically attracted you to Cassiar Gold, and what potential do you see there?
Yeah, okay. Thank you for the question. I first looked at the Cassiar data just under 2 years ago, I guess, and what was fairly obvious to me was 2 things. One was the potential for significant high-grade vein systems. As you saw from one of the earlier slides, that's a 15-kilometer long zone, and there are numerous veins, some of which, or rather a few of which, have been mined in the past. And the average grade of those veins that were previously mined was better than 15 grams. So orogenic vein camps have potential to quickly add ounces simply because of their high grade. Analogies, for example, would be what's happening currently in Victoria with Fosterville South, Kirkland Lake, etc. So I was really attracted firstly to the high grade potential of that 15-kilometer long zone. And then secondly, of course, there's the million ounce plus existing resource, which actually is still quite open. So there's potential to significantly add to that. There's extremely good infrastructure. It's easy to operate. It's low cost exploration. And so I really think that the potential for multi-million ounce deposits in this district is quite high. And particularly with the high grade, that's, for me, it's the high grade potential of the veins that is the real upside of this project. I have been involved in orogenic deposits previously. During my Ivanhoe days, Ivanhoe discovered the very high grade Modi Tong deposit in Myanmar. That was multi-million ounce. We were cutting grades back to 30 grams. So orogenic vein camps are somewhat underestimated, but certainly have potential to add ounces quickly simply because of grade. So if you are fortunate enough to tie up a whole district, which is what Cassiar have done, I think the upside is really exciting.
Thank you. So we have actually a number of questions for you, Doug. So next one. Do you see any parallels for Cassiar with other known projects, either North America or elsewhere?
Well, certainly elsewhere. I definitely am no expert on North America, but in terms of camps elsewhere, Victoria with plus 80 million ounce production of gold comes to mind. The South Island of New Zealand has quite similar deposits. That's produced multi-million ounces and still is a major producer of gold. So also in BC, there's several deposits. Cassiar is one of several. And even if you look at some of the famous old camps where the gold rushes took place in the 1890s, they're geologically quite similar. Orogenic gold deposits, if they are eroded, can produce multi-million ounce alluvial deposits. So frequently one sees a lot of production from alluvials and not so much the hard rock. But in the case of Cassiar, over that 15-kilometer trend, we're looking at the high-grade vein sources still preserved. And so I think that's that's very significant. But to answer the question specifically, yeah, I would say Victoria in Australia and the South Island of New Zealand as being two examples with huge production.
So the next one is also for you, Doug. Could you speak about the high grade potential at Table Mountain?
Yeah, we reviewed the technical data in a meeting about just over a week ago, and there's actually quite a lot of underground information in terms of former production and drilling. And Dave Rees was present in that meeting, and Dave's far more knowledgeable than I am about structure and these types of deposits. But it was very clear that there's immediate upside adjacent to areas that were mined previously, both along strike and at depth. And again, it gets back to the grade, because the previous production from 4 or 5 significant deposits, which totals roughly nearly 400,000 ounces, I believe, the grades were better than 15 grams per ton. So that's the sort of grades that we would be looking for in the ongoing exploration around the known high-grade deposits. And this doesn't really take into account the numerous vein systems that have not had any previous mining and very little exploration.
The last one for you. Could you please speak about who David Rees is and what's his background?
Yeah, that's my pleasure. Dave Rees has a long history of success and explorations, initially within the Carlin district. He was, and still is, I think, a significant, he's a well-known consultant. He does a lot of work for Newmont. He's been involved directly with orogenic gold systems globally, both research and consulting. He was involved with Fosterville South for Kirkland Lake, and I think still does consulting for them. He does a lot of work for Oceana Gold in New Zealand, and both on orogenics and epithermals. He's been involved in projects in the orogenic belts in West Africa. Dave brings to the table huge experience, but what I really like about Dave's work is that it's practical. Dave likes to get his hands dirty, and he really understands structure, which is a key element of exploration for orogenic gold systems. Coincidentally, Dave actually spent more than a year working around the Cassiar district around 9 to 10 years ago. And so it's not as if he's coming into something new that he has to understand. He already has a very strong appreciation of what's going on. And this is going to be incredibly important for the exploration program this year. So we're very fortunate to have Dave. I have enormous respect for his practical ability. And yeah, he's a pleasure to work with. He's a great addition to the team.
Thank you, Doug, for your insights. And then we have one question which is more general. Maybe Mark, we can take that. Do you think this could be a realistic target for acquisition by a gold mid-tier? If so, which companies could be potential acquirers?
It is a realistic target for a mid-tier. I think any mid-tier or any major could be looking at us now or later. We actually have a few slides on our corporate presentation, which is available on the website, which talks a little bit about the declining gold reserves that majors and mid-tiers have, and the lack of exploration we've seen in the last few years. And it's with the current gold price, which I honestly think is relatively low, but aside from that, even at this gold price, these companies are increasing substantially their cash balances and having declining gold reserves, and having decreased over the last few years their exploration budgets. They will need to add ounces through M&A. And I think projects like ours will eventually be targets of these companies. Actually, we started conversations with some of these companies already, and I think the majority of them are potential acquirers. I think there's some that are better fits than others, because if it's companies are comfortable with orogenic gold systems, or if they're comfortable with bulk tonnage open pitable deposits, or with high grade gold imports, things like we have. So these will be better targets. Some of them will be some of the companies that Doug mentioned, or that Dave Reese has worked with, like Kirkland Lake or Shiana, etc. So, but I think actually the majority of these companies are actually realistic targets for potential acquisition. And I sincerely hope we can prove a lot of the potential that we have before that happens.
Thank you. And then we have a question for Reyna Silver. Although the share price has done well from the 20 cents placement, it's been stuck at around $1. Given silver's performance, why has the price not moved up?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and thank you for asking that. We had a really interesting situation. We went public, as you well know, at 20 cents. And actually, our financing was finished, actually, today, a year ago, during PDAC, literally today, we finished it. I don't know if you remember what was happening at the day, but I think maybe 3-4 days after we closed the financing, the market crashed. Silver went down to like $12. And then by the time we went public in June, silver had recovered a little bit. But then during that time between June and about September, silver really took off. And that's where our share price really has sort of moved beyond $1 and settled there. I mean, the reality is so far our share price has traded a lot more than anything based on the silver price. And really not so much because of any, of course, there's been activity in the company. We made several announcements. We made some announcements of our exploration results. But really the catalyst for the company is going to be when we deliver our exploration results. And, the one thing that I would tell you is, I don't know to what extent the gentleman who asked this question is following the silver market. There's a lot going on. If you looked at what happened, I think 3 weeks ago now, the same crowd that was trying to break the short squeeze of GameStop, the Reddit investors had a concerted move to try to break the short of silver and do a silver squeeze. I don't know if you followed that event, but that took silver from like 27 to 30, and then our company as well as our peers went up dramatically. But then that didn't work out, so they came back down. I think you're going to see a lot of dramatic movements, not just in silver. I think we're in a kind of market where all assets are just very volatile. I think what I would say is, I think you have to block a little bit the noise on silver prices and just look at our projects. The goal here is to prove that we have the potential for a district scale project that, if we're able to materialize that potential, our share price will certainly be much higher than it is now. And as I said before, I do believe that we have that potential with every one of our assets. We have a very successful team of explorations behind it. So that would be the comment that I would make on this question.
I think that's it. So I would like to thank all of our speakers today, and thank you everyone for taking your time and joining us. Hope you enjoyed this webinar and have a great day. Stay tuned for the next our webinars, and the replay will be available also.
Thank you.
I'm officially closing the webinar.
Thanks,
Have
everyone.
a great day.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.